And now the police have just arrived, and I think we are in big trouble because we parked somewhere completely illegal. The police officer is coming out right now. We're done for Wukas. We have to run on the Benelli. Good thing they're fast. Hi, it's me, Andrej. I've got a problem with the Benelli. Seriously, because I don't know what to say. I mean, I know what to say, but I don't really know what to think. Here's the thing. The first time I rode the Benelli TRK was about 4 years ago. And we took a cross-section of adventure motorcycles to the Bishadi Mountains. And in the end, the first impression was like, okay, it's just a bike, kind of so-so. But if you treat it as a cheap option, then it's fine. But later, over time, as time went on, we started to appreciate that it really did everything bravely. It rode well, handled corners nicely, and so on and so on and so on. It was just like, okay, fine. Then you started writing various comments about Benelli. I also started reading some reviews about the Benelli TRK. And suddenly it turns out that this motorcycle is simply a hit. And honestly, I'm not surprised, because with motorcycles, it always depends on which year it was bought. But let's assume a price range of 30 to 40,000 zlotys, with fairings, with panniers, capable of going really far. And from what I know, they just don't break down. Well, I get it. It's just a total hit. So why do I have a problem? My problem is with the Leoncino. The thing is, the first motorcycle I rode was the Leoncino 500. And back then I said, okay, as a first step, they did everything right, because the bike looks good, the engine worked really well, the injection system ran smoothly. What I said was missing was that the brakes were too on-off, the suspension, in my opinion, wasn't tuned well enough, and the bike was just heavy. And then some time passed, and the Leoncino 800 came out. Now what happened? And honestly, I can basically repeat the same things I said before. Smoke and I were riding these motorcycles, and as we're going, we have this problem that, well, sorry, but both Smoke and I are just a bit jaded at this point. Either we like those kinds of bikes, those totally crazy 125S, 50 cc's. They make us happy because we're riding full throttle, things are rattling or not rattling, but overall it's soft and fun. Or on the other end of the spectrum, we have those bikes, the ones we also test, semi-active suspensions, 160 horsepower, electric windshields, all sorts of traction controls, and so on. And somewhere in the middle are the motorcycles that riders actually buy. Those individuals who want to acquire a new motorcycle, one that will reliably work on. This is always the most challenging part for me, to truly put myself in their shoes, because you absolutely have to take a few deliberate steps back and genuinely see things from the user's perspective. And the most important thing is that these motorcycles really look good. When it comes to this segment, because they fall into the heritage, stylish, custom category, they really hold their own here, because these motorcycles have been ridden, and not just by us, not just in our editorial office. And every time the feedback was that people would even stop and ask, what is that? It's a motorcycle that encourages conversation, catches the eye, and does all this for, I don't know, half the price of a BMW R9T, because these bikes cost 34. All right, and roughly 34,000 zlotys, 35,000 zlotys, and overall they have everything. They have power, the engines are here. Definitely the engines are really very good, though in my opinion a bit too aggressive at the initial twist of the throttle. That's a decision made at the motorcycle design stage. Do we make a motorcycle that's gentle, and in the end being gentle is actually better? Or do we make a motorcycle that goes, whoa, when you twist the throttle, wow? And these do go a bit wow when you open the throttle, but then they become pretty normal. They're gentle, they have 75 horsepower. They're not slow at all, even though they're heavy, which I'll get to in a moment. But when you give it gas and shift through the gears, they really pick up speed in a satisfying way. But ultimately, I would prefer if they were a bit gentler in delivering that power right at the very beginning. Well, but that's because, I do have some expectations, that kind. The brakes, again, strong, sharp, and honestly, even a bit too sharp for me. Fortunately, with ABS, well, in these conditions, it doesn't really need to kick in, because in both cases, we have Pirelli tires, which just grip incredibly well. But for me, the brakes could still use a bit more modulation. For example, if there was a smaller piston in the master cylinder, so it would feel more substantial, more solid. And again, I admit I might not be an expert, because, a beginner might get on, touch the brakes and say, wow, What a razor! Well, yes, it can be like that. But it goes, what a razor! I'll take it. Listen, that's possible, and I'm not saying it's wrong because everyone needs something different. Above all, everyone wants emotions from motorcycles. And the visual and performance excitement is definitely there. What I'm still nitpicking about, unfortunately, is the weight, because that price has to come from somewhere. Okay, well, exotic materials are getting more and more expensive. And exotic materials mean less weight while maintaining performance. But here, the price is still very attractive because, you know, everything is getting more expensive, including these motorcycles. We can't call them cheap because it's several over 30,000 zlotys. But if we look at the engine capacity and the competition and also at the equipment, so they're actually really good. When I talk about equipment, I mean, for example, the gauges, which are simply nice, very clear, electronic, and there's a lion running. And you can, if you have a child, you turn on the lion for them. Look, a lion, and the kid goes, I want to eat. Look, a lion, eat, sleep, lion, lion. Yeah. So yeah, what I really dream of is for the weight to finally start going down. And then honestly, my attitude, which you know is pretty demanding, would definitely change because the suspension would work better too. The suspension here is nice because I let two friends take it for a spin. One of them does the filming and the other works with us in the office. They have driver's licenses, they ride motorcycles, but they don't have, you know, that kind of experience. They're not as jaded as I am, or even as Mariusz is. And I let them, I'm not telling you anything. Go ahead, ride. One of them said the suspension is super stiff. The other said it's too soft. Well, in my opinion, it's too stiff. And it's not even about that kind of stiffness. It's about the fact that this motorcycle is heavy and the suspension needs to give it support, especially when riding on asphalt, because that's mainly how motorcycles are tested. And that's mainly the point, that it should be safe, for example, when riding through corners, so that it's stable. And these motorcycles, when you're riding on smooth asphalt, through corners, everything grips, everything is super, super nice. That weight, as the speed increases, it stops being so important. But when we hit short bumps, then the suspension, you know, maybe it's not even about whether it's too stiff or not. It just can't keep up. It works too slowly. That's why my advice is this: do what I didn't do, simply because I haven't had the chance yet. If you're looking at the Leoncino and you like it, I really think it's a good idea to take it for a ride and form your own opinion. So aim for this version. For example, if you decide to buy the special version, you'll get Marzocchi suspension and Brembo brakes. As for the Brembo, honestly, I don't really need anything better than these calipers here, but that suspension might actually handle short bumps better, and that would be cool. And that's it. And that's my issue with Benelli. I hope I'll get to ride the 752 SRC later this year. That's how much I know. On that cruiser, because just like the TRK 500, and we're waiting for the 800, the TRK 800 is going to be a huge hit. So maybe that one too, its concept will just fit with what Benelli offers. Because with these types of motorcycles, you know, all those heritage customs are bikes that look retro, but they ride. They ride in a very modern way. This one also rides very modernly up until the moment when you just, well, when you come up against that mess, you know, when you run into the bike's own weight. Because ready to ride, they weigh 222 kilograms. So seriously, we're still aware of that. Benelli, an Italian brand produced in China, owned by the Chinese. But these are signs that the Chinese are coming, because they can make a motorcycle that is really well done, since you can't say that this motorcycle is bad in any way. No, this is truly a motorcycle you can ride. It's just a matter of them finding the right balance between gadgets like fancy displays and LED lights. I understand that it's kind of a requirement if you want to compete. You have to have LED headlights and LED indicators, but all of that also costs money. Personally, I'd prefer if they found more savings somewhere, I don't know where, but try to reduce the weight, because that would automatically make things easier for the suspension and everything else. So that's it. For me, Benelli still has a bit to go. I mean, with the TRK, I could just as well ride that cruiser now. You know, honestly, this isn't really my style of motorcycle anyway, but if I'm being harsh, when you compare it to the competition, you can feel that small difference in price. But still, it's a brand new motorcycle for just over 30,000 zlotys. So listen, I've basically told you nothing. Even though, besides the fact that the motorcycles look cool and are well put together, that's really all there is to it, as you can see from these opinions. Two people rode them, have different opinions. That's just how it is. If you get the chance, take one for a ride. If you need a new motorcycle, because I get it. There's nothing better than a new motorcycle. It's like a new pair of underwear. Nobody wants used underwear. And if you don't want to spend a fortune, it's really worth taking a ride because it might turn out to be just what you're looking for. Bye.